The 2020 NFL Draft is officially in the books. And Saints fans, are we happy with the picks? Or would you prefer a do-over? It's hard to judge a draft pick before the players have even taken their first NFL snap, but as time passes, draft pick busts and draft pick steals start to become clear. Now, what makes a steal in an NFL draft? To me, it comes down to a player being selected significantly later in the actual draft than they would have been picked if NFL teams were given a chance to do it over again. So who are the biggest draft day steals by the New Orleans Saints since Sean Payton took over the team in 2006? Well, here's my list of top 10. Now remember, this is my list, so reasonable minds could differ. And if you don't agree with the list or think they should be in a different order, please let me know. Here's how you can tell me. Get out a sheet of 8.5 by 11 college ruled paper. Write down all of the ways your list would be better. Then take that list, crumble it up into a little ball, throw it away, and kindly go f*** off. This is my list, and no one cares about your opinion. No, but really, thank you for your feedback. Please like, share, and subscribe to help our new channel. So, without further ado, I'm Chris from Canal Chronicles, and here are my top 10 draft day steals by Sean Payton and the New Orleans Saints. Number 10, wide receiver Kenny Stills. Kenny Stills was selected in the 5th round of the 2013 NFL Draft, 144th overall out of the University of Oklahoma. Stills came in electric in his rookie season as a deep threat for the Saints, catching 32 passes for only 641 yards, but leading the league in yards per reception. Stills then improved in his sophomore year with the Saints, totaling 931 receiving yards, while improving his catch percentage from 64% to almost 76%. Then, despite those two productive seasons in New Orleans, the Saints surprisingly traded the former 5th round pick to the Miami Dolphins for linebacker Darnell Ellerbe and a 2015 third. Ellerbe had a couple injury-riddled seasons with the Saints, and the 2015 third-round pick was eventually used to select cornerback P.J. Williams, and P.J. Williams remains with the team as a role player in 2020. But even ignoring the acquisition of P.J. Williams, the selection of Stills by himself was a significant draft day steal. Stills has had a solid career in the NFL, even if on his third team since 2013. Granted, the 2013 NFL Draft produced wide receiver DeAndre Hopkins, but other receivers selected in front of Stills include Tavon Austin, 8th overall to the St. Louis Rams, Justin Hunter, and I don't even know who that is, 34th overall to the Tennessee Titans, Aaron Dobson, 59th overall to the New England Patriots, and Ace Sanders, 101st overall to the Jacksonville Jaguars. You know, just your usual group of Pro Bowl wideouts. Number 9, tight end Jimmy Graham. Jimmy Graham was selected in the 3rd round of the 2010 NFL Draft, 95th overall. Did you know Jimmy Graham played basketball at the University of Miami? I bet you've never heard this before, but the 6'7" Graham was a forward for the Miami Hurricanes before deciding to return to the U for a year of graduate studies, where he then finally played football. This limited game film for Graham as a football player is likely what caused him to fall down many draft boards, with players like Ed Dickson going before him. Graham was on a Hall of Fame trajectory in New Orleans, including an incredible 2013 that saw Graham catch 86 passes for 1,215 yards and 16 touchdowns. Then, one short season later, and Graham was shipped to the Seattle Seahawks in a deal for center Max Unger. Graham has made 5 Pro Bowls, 1 first-team All-Pro, 1 second-team All-Pro, and has led the league in touchdowns as a tight end once in his career. Graham has failed to find similar success in the NFL with either the Seahawks or the Green Bay Packers, and it's still to be determined how he'll fit in with the Chicago Bears as their 20th, 25th, 30th tight end. Who knows? Number 8, offensive lineman Jermon Bushrod. Bushrod was grabbed by the Saints in the 4th round of the 2007 NFL Draft, 125th overall. Now, Bushrod is the first of the Saints Super Bowl team to make this list, and spoiler alert, he won't be the last. In addition to being a Super Bowl champion, Bushrod made 2 Pro Bowls for the Saints and started every single game from the time he took over as a starter in 2009 until he left the team for the Chicago Bears in 2012. Bushrod eventually returned to the Saints for a final season in 2018, but in total, he had a 7-year NFL career, which saw him go from a 4th-round pick to Super Bowl champion and future New Orleans Saints Hall of Famer. Number 7. Edge, Rob Ninkovich. Ninkovich was drafted by the New Orleans Saints in Sean Payton's first draft class, the star-studded 2006 year. And spoiler alert again, he's not going to be the last of this class to make the list. Ninkovich went to the Saints in the 5th round, 135th overall. His first 2 seasons with the Saints were marred with injury. He ended the 2006 season on injured reserve after tearing his MCL. Healthy and then ready to go for the 2007 season, Ninkovich again ended the year on injured reserve with yet another knee injury. He was subsequently waived the following offseason. Ninkovich then spent 2 uneventful years with the Miami Dolphins before rejoining the Saints briefly to be their long snapper. That's right, the versatile defensive player was going to go from defensive end / linebacker to defensive end / linebacker / long snapper. Ninkovich was subsequently waived by the Saints later that same offseason after they signed long snapper Jason Kyle, and that's when Ninkovich's career took off. He latched on with the New England Patriots and then went on to play 8 seasons in New England, winning 2 Super Bowls along the way. It's hard to imagine the Saints knew what they had in Ninkovich once he was finally able to play full and healthy seasons and not play as a long snapper, but overall, I would say the 2-time Super Bowl champ isn't too worked up over the fact the Saints let him go. Number 6. Wide receiver Michael Thomas. Laquan Treadwell. The Minnesota Vikings drafted Ole Miss wide receiver Laquan Treadwell, 23rd overall in the 2016 NFL Draft. In his first 4 seasons, Treadwell totaled 701 receiving yards. Corey Coleman has totaled 789 receiving yards after he was drafted by the Cleveland Browns 15th overall. Then Michael Thomas, affectionately known as Can't Guard Mike, drafted by the Saints 47th overall, in 2019 alone, totaled 235 receiving yards more than Treadwell and Coleman have compiled in their entire careers. To say the Vikings or Browns wouldn't want a do-over here would be an understatement. Michael Thomas has gone on to be one of the NFL's best receivers, and while other players drafted ahead of him are completely out of the league, Laquan Treadwell has been banished to an even worse fate. He's now an Atlanta Falcon. Number 5, offensive lineman Carl Nicks. Carl Nicks was drafted by the New Orleans Saints in the 5th round of the 2008 NFL Draft, 164th overall. To say Nicks was a draft day steal would be a bit of an understatement. But think of it this way, 26 different players drafted ahead of Nicks made a total of 69 different Pro Bowls over the course of their career. Only 1 player drafted after Nicks made a single Pro Bowl, and even that player, Justin Forsett, made only 1. In the course of Carl Nicks' career, he made 2 Pro Bowls, plus a second-team All-Pro, a first-team All-Pro, and was a member of the Super Bowl champion New Orleans Saints before eventually landing in the New Orleans Saints Hall of Fame. Not bad for a 5th rounder. Number 4, offensive lineman Zach Strief. NFL drafts only have 7 rounds, so how often do you have a 7th round pick contribute in the NFL? Well, not often at all, but that's exactly what the Saints were able to find drafting Zach Strief all the way in the 7th round of the 2006 NFL Draft, 210th overall. Strief ended up starting 94 games for the Saints over the course of 12 seasons. Originally drafted to be the replacement to future Saints Hall of Famer John Stinchcomb on the offensive line, Strief now finds himself replacing the future Saints Hall of Famer Jim Henderson in the radio booth. All in all, Strief has been with the New Orleans Saints in one way or another for a whopping 14 years. And by all accounts, Strief is enjoying himself as play-by-play announcer for the Saints radio broadcast, so we'll likely be hearing his name for a long time to come. Number 3, punter Thomas Morstead. Thomas Morstead, aka Legatron, was drafted in the 5th round of the 2009 NFL Draft, 164th overall. Morstead has consistently been among the NFL's best in net yards per punt over the past decade, and was one of only 2 members of the Super Bowl 44 team still playing for the Saints. That number is 3 now that the Saints have re-signed Malcolm Jenkins. Morstead's Pro Bowl trip in 2012 was awesome, but what he's most known for was his role in Ambush, the name given to the surprise onside kick against the Indianapolis Colts in Super Bowl 44, which helped turn the tides of the game. But I think it's time to change the narrative for Morstead. Instead of Ambush, there's something even more noteworthy that deserves far more praise and recognition, but it requires talking about something Saints fans probably would prefer to forget: the Minneapolis Miracle. Everyone remembers Stephon Diggs catching Case Keenum's deep pass down the sideline for a touchdown in the 2018 NFC Divisional Round. What people forget is that, despite the Vikings taking the lead on that touchdown as time expired, that wasn't actually the final play of the game. The Vikings were still forced to kick a meaningless extra point, despite the fact that most of the Saints roster had already gone back into the locker room. With just enough players to take the field for the extra point, Thomas Morstead was the first player to come back out of the locker room for the kick. This is despite the fact that Morstead tore cartilage in his ribcage earlier in the same game. He's a certified badass, and a badass the Saints drafted in the 5th round. Number 2, offensive lineman Jahri Evans. The New Orleans Saints sure seemed like they had a knack for finding late-round gems on the offensive line. If you thought 2 Pro Bowls and a first-team All-Pro for Carl Nicks was impressive, just wait till you run down Jahri Evans' resume. 6 Pro Bowls, 4 first-team All-Pros, plus 1 second-team All-Pro, a 2-time Madden Most Valuable Protectors Award winner, Pro Football Weekly's All-Rookie Team, not to mention he was one of the NFL's recent All-Decade Team members, and on top of that, he was a member of the Super Bowl champion Saints. That's not bad for a 4th-round pick in the 2006 draft. Get this, 108th overall. The first offensive tackle taken in the draft was Winston Justice, who, taken in the 2nd round, 39th overall by the Philadelphia Eagles. In Winston Justice's 8-year career, he made 0 All-Pro teams, won 0 accolades, and was voted to a grand total of 0 Pro Bowls. Oof. Think the Eagles wish they had a do-over there? And number 1, wide receiver Marcus Colston. It couldn't be anyone else. 252nd out of 255. That's where Marcus Colston, a no-name wide receiver out of Hofstra, was taken by the New Orleans Saints with a supplemental 7th-round pick in 2006. And what did Marcus Colston go on to do? Well, win a Super Bowl and get inducted into the New Orleans Saints Hall of Fame. It is an absolute travesty that Colston never made a Pro Bowl over the course of his career, but that can likely be chalked up to the fact that Colston kept his head down and went about his business, hence why he earned the nickname the Quiet Storm. The Quiet Storm could be penciled in for approximately 1,000 receiving yards and 8 touchdowns every year during his 10-year career. Colston still owns New Orleans Saints franchise records for receiving yards and receiving touchdowns. And this is all coming from someone drafted 4 spots away from being Mr. Irrelevant, the name reserved for the player taken with the very last pick in the draft. But let's have some fun with numbers. Franchise receiving leader of the New Orleans Saints, Marcus Colston, was drafted 252nd overall. Franchise receiving leader of the Carolina Panthers, Steve Smith Sr., was drafted 74th overall. Franchise receiving leader of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Mike Evans, was drafted 7th overall. And franchise receiving leader of the Atlanta Falcons, Julio Jones, was drafted 6th overall. Add up the draft positions of the receiving leaders of the 3 teams, Bucs, Panthers, and Falcons, and you get 87. Marcus Colston wore jersey number 12. 87 minus 12 is 75. The Bucs, Falcons, and Panthers are 3 teams. 75 divided by 3 is 25. The Falcons blew a 25-point lead in the Super Bowl. Never forget. And that's our list. Did I leave any out? Would you have had these players in a different order? What players do you think could make this type of list 10 years from now for the Saints? Let us know in the comments and send me presents. And please, make sure you do like this video, share it on social media, and subscribe to our new channel. As always, you can follow me on Twitter here.